Today we're doing some stats. I've managed to get my metaphorical hands on some Fate Grand Order data. For those of you who are not familiar, Fate Grand Order is a mobile game based on the Fate franchise. Servants are playable characters available in the game, and you roll for them in a gacha. The dataset we're working with includes every servant available as of March 23rd, 2023 on the JP server, through the 2023 White Day event, with the most recent arrival being Takasugi. I got this data from atlasacademy.io. You can access the data file there, and I'll put a link to my analysis script in the comments of this video. The dataset included 375 units, but 5 of those were enemy-only beasts, so the analyses I'll be showing y'all include only the 370 playable servants in the dataset. Now, let's dive into the data, starting with rarity. Like any gacha game, it's easier to get some units than others. You've got 1 stars at the most common and 5 stars at the rarest, at least in terms of getting them from the gacha. The fact is, with sheer frequency, 4-star servants, aka super rare servants, are the most common in the game. 5 stars, the rarest in the game, are the second most common type of servant. 1 stars, the easiest units to get, are also the rarest, though there is one exception to that, and that is the single 0-star servant, which doesn't even really have a rarity, but is definitely the most difficult one to get. Now let's talk classes. In FGO, servants are divided into 13 classes that determine their strengths and weaknesses in-game. Saber and Caster are the most common classes, with 47 units each. It probably isn't super surprising that Shielder's the rarest class, with just MASH as a member. Besides that, there's a 2-way tie for rarest class between Moon Cancer and the newest class to be added, Pretender, which makes sense. The original lore said that only BB qualified as Moon Cancer, though obviously they've changed that since, and Pretender hasn't been around super long. Now let's talk gender. FGO has been called a waifu game, and there's some merit to that. Lasengul definitely uses sex appeal to get people to roll the gacha, but how much of a waifu game is it? Well, women are definitely the majority. There are 1.6 women for every man in the game, but the gender disparity isn't as big as I would have predicted. I don't know about you. You've also got 16 characters that aren't a man or a woman. This is a pretty broad category. This could be Enkidu, who hasn't got a gender, the Dioscuri, who both have genders, there are 2 of them, one's a man and one's a woman. And then you've got King Shihong, whose gender is the royal we, and Romulus, of course, whose gender is Rome. Now, there's one more major way to categorize servants, and that's by attribute. This is a pretty hidden gameplay mechanic, but it's like a secondary class system. Different attributes have different strengths and weaknesses, but those advantages and disadvantages are super small, and they rarely have a noticeable impact on gameplay. There are 5 attributes: Sky, Earth, Human, Star, and Beast. Sky is strong against Earth, which is strong against human strong against sky, and star and beast are strong and weak against each other. These attributes are based on characters' lore, so it makes sense that in a game with a bunch of historical figures, human would be the most common attribute. A lot of these characters were humans before they became servants. The least common by far is beast. There are only 3 playable characters with the beast attribute: Koyanskaya of Light and Dark, and Kiara in alter ego form. There are 5 other characters in the game with the beast attribute, but they're all either enemy-only, like Gautier or Tiamat, or only a guest servant, like Redacted for Lost Servant spoilers. Okay, now let's talk stats. Every character's got things like attack stats and health points, which is pretty boilerplate for a combat-based game, I think. I'm going to be talking max stats, meaning at max level without grails. The average maximum attack in the game is 9,585, and the maximum HP on average is about 11,891. So on average, HP is over 2,000 points higher than attack. The standard deviations for both attack and HP are about the same. If we're just talking max attack, the servants with the highest max attack, starting from the top, are Jolter, Summer Kama, Summer Ibuki, King Protea, and Bazette. All are 5 stars, all of them are limited, so you can't normally roll them. Oof. The highest HP servants aren't all limited, which is great. We've got Jinako, Artoria, Jean Ruler, Malay, and Erishkigal. All 5 stars, sure, but you can get some of them in the normal gacha. Now let's see who's got it the worst. Before I go into this, I want you to sit back and ask yourself, who do you think has the lowest max attack in the game? Because I sure did not guess it right. It's Spartacus. That guy. What? Then there's Nobukatsu, Mozart, Georgios, and Matahari, all 1 stars. For lowest HP, we've got Bunyan with the lowest, then Kojiro, then Corday, poor Matahari again, and Asterios. All 1 stars again. You're probably noticing a pattern here. Let's break this down by rarity to see if that pattern holds out. To almost no one's surprise, rarity is a pretty great predictor of max attack and max HP. The higher the rarity, the higher your numbers. That thing in the lower left-hand corner is a statistical measure called generalized eta squared, and what it's telling you is that most of the differences in stats in the game are down to rarity alone. There are other factors, but that's the main one for sure. But we can also break it down by class. Now, there's kind of a stereotype that rulers are the tanks of the game on average, and berserkers and avengers are more like glass cannons. Let's see if that shakes out based on their stats alone. So I am not taking their skills into account, or their noble phantasms into account here, but just based on stats alone. Now, most of these max attack stats probably aren't significantly different across classes if we're talking statistics, but just raw numbers-wise, foreigners win out for the highest average max attack, with Avengers and then Alter Egos in the running for close second and third. The lowest average attack stat belongs to casters. They're usually more support-oriented units anyway, with Assassins having the second lowest average attack. For HP, Moon Cancer's got the highest by over 1,000 points on average. Foreigner and Ruler are second and third highest respectively, so Foreigner's got pretty high stats overall. It's in the top 2 for both attack and HP. Consistent with stereotypes, Berserkers have the lowest average HP in the game, mostly followed by Avenger and then Assassin. Poor Assassin's class, in the lowest 3 for both attack and HP. Now, there's one other major number attached to servants, and that's bond points. See, the more often you have a servant in your party, the higher their bond points go. This gives you rewards like special items, additional voice lines, special quests, and on rare occasions, it can give your units buffs, like in the final battle of Act 1. They're also supposed to represent the emotional bond you have with the servant, and that's reflected in the voice lines that you unlock. Maximum bond level you can get to without using special items is bond 10. So which servants warm up to you the fastest? Starting from the quickest, Matahari is the easiest to win over in the game. Then Spartacus, then Arash, then Corday, and Kojiro and Asterios tied for 5th place. What about the stubborn jerks who take the longest? Well, that's a 7-way tie. Shockingly, Oberon and Gilgamesh aren't on this list. They're both in the group that takes second longest, along with Orion, Merlin, and Castoria, among others. The 7 who take the longest to bond 10 are Tesla, Karna, Brunhilde, Skyok, Taigangwang, Kiara, and Dantes. Like attack and HP, you're probably noticing that all the lowest are 1 stars and all the highest are 5 stars. Now, in the early days, there was kind of this thought that bond points were at least partially determined by a character's personality, and I would say that's true to some extent. But look at that effect size. Look at how small those standard error bars are. The amount of bond points you need to get to bond 10 is almost exclusively determined by a servant's rarity. Their lore has very, very little to do with it at all, which sucks in my humble opinion. I think that's kind of a missed opportunity, but oh well. Now, if you're anything like me, you notice that 3 of the 7 servants that are slowest to bond 10 were Lancers, so I kind of started to wonder, which honestly wouldn't be a surprise given how they were treated, especially early on in the franchise. So let's break this down by class. And well, it's about the same for everyone. The 7 standard classes were all pretty uniform in number of bond points they need to max out. Extra classes like Ruler, Moon Cancer, and Pretender are higher on average than the 7 standard classes, but not by a huge amount. Oddly enough, of the 7 standard classes, it seems like Sabers have the highest thresholds by a little bit, but that probably isn't statistically significant. That was a lot. So what did we learn? Well, for most of the differences in stats, things like attack, HP, and bond points, rarity was by far the biggest determinant, not class. If you want servants with the highest raw stats, you'll have to save up or shell out for them. But then you'll also have to work harder for bond farming to get them to bond 10. That was only a quick peek at this data set. I have a lot of other variables, a lot of which are listed here, that I can look at, or combinations that I can check out. If there's something that you want to know, or if you have anything that you want me to look at that I haven't, go ahead and drop it below in the comments section. I might make another video if there's enough interest. All right, that's it for today. I hope that y'all are hanging in there all right, and I will see you next class. Bye!